Which Radnor Township Commissioner is questioning a proposal before the Board of Commissioners to purchase for $80,000 portable barriers for the township? And when will the dangerously bumpy stretch of Darby Paoli Road from Newtown Road to Sawmill be resurfaced? These and other questions will be answered today in this installment of Commissioner's Corner with 6th Ward Commissioner Jake Abel. Jake, good to see you again.
Rick, thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure. Things are never dull in the township. There are always issues, some major, some others are just irritating.
Right.
We'll cover both today.
Okay.
But the first one, again, my understanding is that you have singularly taken issue with a proposal that was submitted to the Board of Commissioners to spend $80,000 in a tight budget on portable barriers. Now, we've seen all the news clips. We know how important barriers are and how they can be breached and so on. What's the issue here?
Well, let me give you a little context. So at the last meeting, the police department proposed, as you stated, the township purchased 8 portable barriers for $80,000, or in a lease agreement, $15,000 a year over a 6 or 7 year period. The presentation we received was that the barriers would be used for primarily for festivals to block the areas where we have pedestrians and stands set up. In addition, it could be used outside, outside where we have outdoor dining at the moment. The reason I opposed it primarily was because, as you stated, we're going to have a tight budget season. We've got a whole series of projects that we're looking to fund, and I see this more, as I characterize it, I see it more as a want, not a need. I've been, if you go down the Pennsylvania Turnpike, or if you go out to the local mall, they have areas blocked off where workers are where there's construction areas. They're not using portable barriers that cost $80,000. They're using, these orange barriers, which my research tells me they're about $250 a piece. So we could probably do this for less than $2,000 and have the similar safety.
However, the proposal is now before the Board of Commissioners, and they're going out for competitive bid?
Yeah, so the RFP, the resolution before us was to go out to RFP, and that did pass. Yeah. It'll come back to us when those bids come in, and I'll likely oppose it again, and propose that we look at alternatives that are cheaper and just as effective.
Are there any other commissioners who are sympathetic to your position?
Well, the vote was 4-3, so it was close, and there was bipartisan support to oppose the resolution. So I hopefully once we have a bigger discussion, then we can talk about alternatives and cheaper options. And that's what when we had public safety and we looked at water safety issues, my idea was to look at cheaper options that provide similar safety to the residents. And we were able to go out and get a utility vehicle used that I don't even think that vehicle cost $80,000. So this is one where we shouldn't be spending $80,000. We should be looking to use that money for higher priorities.
For the record, you have a record of being behind every single issue for first responders to make sure they have all the equipment that they need to be safe and to be effective. So I don't know that anyone could argue that you're anti-police or anti-security.
Yeah, and I don't like opposing things that first responders and the police department bring forth. Yeah. We've had. I've been on the board 4 years. We've had festivals the last 4 years, and currently I think we use vehicles to block off certain areas. Is that ideal? No. Is it effective? Yes. And do I think it's worth $80,000 to look at different options? No. Yeah. No.
Okay, we'll see what happens. The second issue, however, was one that's near and dear to my heart, and that is the stretch of Darby Paoli Road near Skunk Hollow. I mean, it really is dangerous because there's a curve there and because too many people speed coming the other way and they cross over into the oncoming lane. I know it's not a township road, but I did ask you to look into it, and you have, and what you learned is?
Well, state road, so it'll be resurfaced by PennDOT, and that should take place sometime later this year. ideally over the summertime, but no later than October.
Mm-hmm.
So you and your neighbors will have a nice stretch of road you know, in the not too distant future.
As you know, it's not just me and the neighbors. It's a heavily traffic road in the morning and evening, going to the Blue Route and coming off the Blue Route.
Sure.
The traffic there is horrendous.
Yep.
And furthermore, as you know, those roads were never meant to carry the traffic they do today. They were country roads back then. I remember, my God, 60 plus years ago, being on Darby Paoli Road, and I can picture it in my mind coming to the intersection at Newtown Road. Now, of course, I didn't know what it was or where I was because I lived in West Philadelphia then, going to St. Thomas More High School. But for some reason, I remember that intersection and how absolutely bucolic it was. It was beautiful, and it still is. And we're fortunate to live in the area.
Yeah, and that area is beautiful. You're right. The road needs to be resurfaced. It'll get done, and you know, it'll match the new bridge that we have in that little area. And you know, as we welcome more and more people to the Willows Park for events, it's that entryway we want.
Nice segue. Speaking of Willows Park, I know that they recently submitted a report, status report, I guess, of where they are, where they hope to be, and how much money they raise, and how much money they hope to raise. What did you see in that report that gives you comfort that they will be able to achieve their objectives of finally raising $5 million plus, I think, to restore the building?
So the old
I
number.
won't call it a mansion because, as you know, I take issue with that. It is, I think, it is technically not a mansion. It is a large building.
Well, I don't know. I don't know the criteria to be a mansion, but so they did. The Willows Park Preserve did present their report, and I think they do 2 per year to the board. You know, nothing surprising. You know, I wasn't expecting that they were going to have this, you know, great fundraising efforts during COVID, and they said as much. I do have some optimism that they believe they're coming out of, you know, that COVID dull, and they're seeing donors starting to come forward. So my expectation is with the second report of the year that we see some improvement over last year's numbers.
Well, as I've said before, I commend them and their tenacity and their dedication to preserving something they feel is of value to the township. I don't happen to agree with them, but it's more important that we have dedicated citizens who are working for the betterment of the community, and they are. So, to their credit.
And you're right, exactly right. You know, I fully hope that this project is successful. You know, my issue's always been you know, how do we spend the 1.7 that the township dedicated to that project? I've always thought that 1.7 should come after they've raised the 5 million or whatever their number is. You know, we've started to spend some of that earlier than I would like, but you know, we'll continue to support as we can, and hopefully they have you know, some success over the next couple months.
Another project I know is at the top of your list is Fenimore Woods and the trees.
Right.
Tell us about that.
So Fenimore Woods was a project that was approved before I was on the board, but you know, like all these park projects, it takes several years for the plans to come to fruition. The township had presented some plans to the board, which when it was presented to residents, there was some opposition due to the number of trees that were being removed. At the time, it was 149 trees. You know, I was also in opposition to seeing that many trees taken out of a park, which you know, my thoughts are we should do what the neighbors. We should have conversations with the neighbors, find out what they want in their parks, but we shouldn't be enlarging areas at the expense of trees.
These are perfectly healthy trees that they wanted to take down to expand the play area?
Well, play area. There is also a you know, an auditorium area where people hold picnics and events.
Right.
And then there were other places around the park near the creek where I think trees were taken down. Some of these, I believe, were healthy trees. Others were deemed hazardous. So what the board decided to do, we decided to separate the plans. You know, the park plans were going to be put on hold, and hopefully there will be a committee set up with residents, volunteer committees from Parks and Rec and Shade Tree, as well as township staff. They'll work on the park plan and then bring that back before the board. What we addressed on Monday night was the trees, and that only 29 trees would be taken down right now. Of those 29, 10 were deemed imminent, so those 10 trees are coming down immediately, and then we're going to monitor those other 19, and they'll come down over the next 18 months.
There's another park that you're especially interested in.
So parks are always of interest to residents. In the 6th Ward, Odorisio Park would be the park that is generating the most support for renovations. This park has relatively been untouched for 40 years. It needs a new bathroom. We've got Little League Baseball being played there. Kids, when it snows, come out there. It's the sledding hill for the community. Soccer is played there. St. Catherine's uses the park. So it's a heavily trafficked park, not to mention the residents who walk through there and just walk around the park because of the natural beauty. We've got playground equipment that needs to be replaced, bathrooms that need to be replaced. We were able to designate $75,000 to resurface the basketball court, which is much appreciated. And then the Maplewood Townhouse project, part of that agreement was the builder would provide $125,000 toward that park. So we have good seed money for that park, and now we're just looking for board support to use funds possibly from the...
Jake, what's the park on Conestoga Road in Garrett Hill that was recently renovated?
Clemacrone.
Beautiful job.
Clemacrone, beautiful.
Yeah, and there's really not that much land there, but they seem to have been able to use every square inch of it.
Yeah, they did, and that's something. And it was a good process. The neighbors were involved, the township was involved. They came together to build out a plan. Yeah, and that's what I'm asking that we do at Odorisio and at Fenimore Woods. I don't know that we have the budget or that there's the want for something as grand as what happened at Clemacrone. What we're looking for is just to maintain the park and do some upkeep where things have denigrated.
It's a densely populated area, and the park seems to be in use almost all the time. Yeah,
but we want to keep what's important here is we want to keep the trees and the wooded area. Yeah. Because people
in the back
because people do come out and that is the beauty of that park.
Okay. One last issue, and it's one of my favorites, and that's microcells.
Sure.
Has the report by the consultants been submitted to the board, and when do you think we'll have some better understanding of what the township's position is with regard to microcells, and when can we expect that there will be a movement in the township to increase the number of microcells so that we all have better service?
So the report, and if you call it a report, I believe it might have been a draft ordinance change. Was submitted to the board, to the township. It's been reviewed by staff, and I'm hoping that we see a draft at the August meeting.
But it had to do specifically with the federal and state laws and regulations with regard to microcells and the extent to which Radnor could have any influence over what the feds and the states say we have to do, right?
Correct. So it's really going to control where things can be placed.
Right.
I'm sure there's going to be additional fees placed on utility companies, and it sets us up for the ordinance is outdated.
Yes.
And microcells weren't a thing when the ordinance was created. So this ordinance is going to prepare us for the next 20 years as we deal with microcells.
Well, you know better than I that the whole issue of wireless service and 5G and so on has been around for a long time now. It'll be great to see it finally come to some resolution because, like so many other people, we need the better service for security reasons as well, particularly in the Willows, which we've discussed ad nauseum. But the other thing that's happening is, again, you know better than I because you're tracking it, is the technology just keeps getting better. So these things that will be in our neighborhoods may not be as intrusive as they are today and have been in the past.
Well, not to mention, let's look at the impacts of COVID.
Yeah, yes.
More people are working from home. More people are on their handheld devices.
Absolutely right.
So you're right. There is going to be a need. My hope is that we have the ordinance, and whatever passes or whatever's updated, the neighbors have a look at that, and if it works for their community, let's have a conversation and see how the township can support.
Well, that concludes another installment of Commissioner's Corner. Thanks, Jake, for being here today.
Rick, I always appreciate it.
And thank you for watching. I'm Rick Anthony. This is Commissioner's Corner. Until next time, take very good care of yourselves.